What is going on, Fantasy Kingdom? Welcome to the Fantasy Kings podcast. We're here tonight after Monday Night Football. Two games, but we're here. I'm your host, Peez. Joining me tonight is going to be our co-host, Carlito. Say what up, Collie.
What up, Peezy? How you doing?
Doing great, man. We also got our EP, executive producer, BeepCount. Beep, what's going on?
What's going on, boys? How you doing?
Doing great, BeepCount. Doing great.
And better. Took an L to Collie this weekend because his whole team exploded. I had the third most points, but kind of sucks when you're playing number one. But what can you do?
That's true.
It could be worse. It could be a lot worse. You could be the Denver Broncos at this point.
That's
I feel like I'd rather be. I feel like that's an upgrade from being the Bears, dude. The Bears had a rough week. This all media coverage, losing $100K and total value supposedly of equipment, having to cover up some type of story for their defensive coordinator who resigned / probably forced to quit. Justin Fields blaming some coaches. Retract that. He would never blame any coaches for his horrible play or his teammates. But even the fans, can't, they just looked awful.
And then Taylor Swift was in attendance to watch you get your teeth kicked in.
But the Bears giving up 41 points and still not being the biggest deficit of the weekend.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true.
Joker of the week, by the way, Broncos defense.
Yeah, pretty bad.
How do you give up 10 touchdowns?
King of the week, Vic Fangio, King Fangs.
The Fangs. But yeah, so anyway, that brings us right into our segment, though, for Kings and Jokers of the week. Like we always do, we're going to start off with the quarterback. Y'all, Collin, who you got this week as your quarterback king?
It's got to be obvious. I got to go with my boy who just single-handedly balled out and gave me the courage to go out and get a W along with my stars. My stars showed out, and Tua had 4 touchdowns. Well over 300 yards passing, 4 touchdowns. Man, that game was just a highlight reel. Anybody who had a piece of that action on the Dolphins minus Waddle balled out and double-digit points. So Tua, 2 or 3 weeks, he's looking like that MVP candidate. He's definitely chasing Mahomes, what's to say for that number 1 QB this year.
Maybe in fantasy, yeah, for sure. I mean, let's not lose our minds. But yeah, no, Tua definitely stick it in me this week. It was not fun to watch. I even text Collin halfway through the game or halfway through the first half. I was like, yo, they're going to take Tua out. This is going to be great. They're beating him so bad. They didn't. I mean, they did eventually, but they let him get 304 first. So that was brutal to watch. I mean, it was awesome because I hate the Broncos, but on the fantasy side, it's just ridiculous. But yeah, that's a good pick. My king is going to be Justin Herbert, who put up 400 yards, 3 touchdowns. They got a big win. I mean, he did get a little lucky because that last touchdown should have been picked, bounced right into his guy's hands. But hey, all we care about is fantasy points. When he put up over 40, he's been looking good. Can't blame him for some of their coaching decisions. But Herbert's going to be the king of the week, so shout out to Justin Herbert. He was making some dime throws too. That one touchdown he threw sidearm to the guy in the flat was insane. I've seen that clip a couple times. That was a ridiculous throw. So shout out to the Chargers and Justin Herbert.
Chargers doing some big things as far as points. Surprised they were able to get that W. Just because they haven't. It was like you never know, dude.
Yeah, well, the gods who are fighting over, like, there's a specific god of the fantasy, there's a football god that fights to make the Chargers Charger, and there's a football god that makes the Vikings Viking, and they were at war. Those two gods were at war on who's going to choke this game away, and ultimately it was the Vikings.
Absolutely.
Although both teams did all they could to lose it.
Yeah, there were some points. A lot of points to be had in that game. my Joker QB of the week, I'll just jump into it because I have several shares. I keep reminding our viewers and people watching and listening is I thought Trevor Lawrence was the chosen one.
Prince that was promised.
But he is not. I mean, another dud. I think he has like one receiver doing well, then ETN is doing good, but it wasn't going good for Ridley. So Trevor Lawrence, I don't even know how they lost that. Let's talk about some
they got
spreads.
Blown out.
Yes, let's talk about some spreads. I think they were a 7.5 point favorite, and they weren't winning at all. They were actually losing the entire game. So I thought, I'm like, oh, this is a great time for them to get some junk points, some catch up points. They're going to be throwing galore. Nobody was hitting, nobody was catching, and they outright lost. So, Joker for me. What about you, Pete?
Yeah, so I agree with you there. The one thing I'll say about Trevor Lawrence is he had 3 just killer drops this past week. The one hit, Calvin Ridley, I mean, you couldn't have handed it off better to him, dropped it, and he had one in the end zone. I mean, I think Trevor Lawrence will be fine, but yeah, it is a baffling start for the prince that was promised. My Joker, and again, we're going to go with a guy I have a lot of shares of, thanks to my esteemed partner, and that would be Justin Fields, who didn't break 100 passing yards, had 47 rush yards, which was pretty good, but man, without that total garbage time touchdown, it would have been even more of a disaster than it was. I know the Bears
a pure garbage time touchdown too, so that maybe eased the bleeding for some people, but oof.
Yeah, that was a rough look for your boy. I mean, when you look at it, you ended up beating me by about 17 points. And your quarterback scored 42 and mine scored 11. So that is not nice. And you were super mad at me when I drafted Justin Fields. We should do a Fields for 2 straight up,
Nah. I mean, I also had Jared Goff there too. I kind of still feel bad for letting him leave my team, but hey, I don't see me benching Tua after how he's playing, and
no way. It'd be insane to bench him.
But RIP to Fields though, because I feel you there. I even drafted him in a couple shares as well, and man, it's been a disappointment. I hope they do something quick, but he's going to be quick on the drop zone completely if he continues. Let's just say 1 or 2 more games, he might not even be rosterable if it literally doesn't turn around at least one game just to get right or whatever the case may be.
He's got the Broncos defense this week, so this is, as they say, the final countdown.
Absolutely.
I just saw Miami drop 70 on his defense. So you should be able to get to 20 fantasy points is all I'm saying.
Yeah, when you have 4 more points than Mike White, the backup for the Dolphins, who threw 2 passes the whole game, I mean,
might be a problem.
Yeah, Mike White is my sneaky king of the week. He scored more fantasy points than the following starters: Zach Wilson, Desmond Ridder, Ryan Tannehill, not Jameis Winston because he came in for injury, Daniel Jones, and Sam Howell. 6 quarterbacks that he scored more fantasy points, and
with 2 passes.
2 passes.
That's wild. That's a wild stat.
And honestly, the best part of that was that dime he threw to Chosen Anderson or Robbie Chosen. I don't know what he goes by. But because, and this is just a fandom thing here, I have to hear Broncos fans all the time, Pastor 10's the best corner in the league. It's like, bro, he just got dusted by the wide receiver 4 and the backup QB. He is not the best corner in the league. Hashtag go Dolphins.
I'm certain of that.
Yeah, I'm certain of that. But yeah, so let's move on to the kings of the wide receiver room. Collie,
we're just going to skip right past the running backs. We can kind of jump around.
Let's jump around. Let's crisscross it.
House of Pain. Let's go.
Absolutely. For my wide receiver, let's just go with another guy on my team that I'm happy to have ownership in and stakes in is Devontae Adams with his 170 plus yards and 2 touchdowns, double-digit receptions and targets. Man, That's what I thought would happen from him. Not like that, but I thought he would be, kind of the one that was overlooked because he was at the end of the first round or kind of at the turn. But yeah, he showed out. Huge day. King for me. Happy to be rewarded for sure.
Yeah, and that one was real. That man, Davante Adams killed me yesterday in 2 different leagues. And specifically against us going to my king, I had Keenan Allen going up against him, so they went blow for blow. Keenan Allen,
which is wild. Those guys were in the 40s, man. They crushed.
Yeah, 43 and 41 and change for both of them. Keenan Allen is about to be the most targeted wide receiver in the NFL. So if you're in a PPR league or a half PPR league, you should try and go and trade for him and they just announced it today. Mike Williams with that torn ACL done for the year. Quentin Johnston hasn't been getting open. They've got some other guys there, but there's a reason he was peppered with love. He got 18 catches on 20 targets, and he's just going to be getting fed the rest of this year. So if you have him like me, sweet, good job. If you don't have him, you might want to try to see if you can trade him. See if you can get a package together.
Honestly, I think this year might just be the year of the seasoned vets. Who kind of went. Let's just say the back seat, because you have people who are proven, like Mike Evans. Not too many people drafted him in the top, let's just say 15. You obviously had Keenan Allen, who was borderline between the 10 and the 15 between who you got him. Davante Adams was in a similar situation there. And just those 3 names right there, those have been proven wide receivers for a long, hot minute going on right now. So yeah, huge king there. Why don't you tell me about who your joker is, Peezy?
Yeah, so my joker is going to be the Heisman Trophy winner, Devontae Smith, who played tonight, only got like 4.5 points. The Philly offense looks, I'm a little concerned about the Philadelphia offense. And I should say the Philadelphia passing offense, because Swift is killing.
He's Swifty. He's doing good. It looks like people got him into steal, but not to change the subject. Go ahead.
But yeah, so the reason I'm worried about the Philly pass offense is that, they've got their run game has improved, as silly as it sounds, from last year, with Swift hitting those holes. Every time they give the ball to Gainwell, I'm like, why? Why are you doing that? He'll have like 1 or 2 good runs a game, and he'll have like 5 where he's just stuffed, right? And Swift is getting the ball, he's hitting the hole hard, and so that is affecting the pass game. And you're seeing that I'm not on a 10 out of 10 scale. I'm not 10 out of 10 for like red fire alarms, but AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, you got to wonder about their thing going forward. If this continues, there was, I think he had 2 catches for 28 yards, something like that. And that's just, where you drafted him, that's going to hurt you.
Yeah. It's tough. I think both those guys are, honestly, they're going to trade duds, and they're going to be a couple times where they're both, be in the top 15 together. But most of the time I would lean more a little bit towards AJ Brown. But you're right. So tough call there. I'm going to go with someone that's a little fan favorite, especially from a draft capital. This guy's just had a lot of hype between him. So my joker for wide receivers of the week is going to be CeeDee Lamb. He had 50 yards. He had 5 points if you're in standard. You didn't even get to double digits if you were in half point PPR. And where you got him, what you spent on him, you expect a lot more from that, especially considering that, they were double digit favorites. Dallas was, and they were basically chasing the entire game. So
losing the whole time. So
you thought that, one, he maybe not have had the best game because you're like, oh, they're probably going to blow him out. They'll probably just run it. Tony Pollard's going to have a huge game, which he had a really good game as far as rushing yards, but not like, off the charts. But no, that's not the case. They were basically losing the entire time. They were chasing the clock the entire time. So I thought, that would be a great spot for him to get a lot of targets, a lot of love. I mean, there were some just bad passes his way, but man, what a bust. 5 points, 50 yards. You definitely expect more than 50 yards from anyone who is a top 10 wide receiver, whether it's, spending $50 or whether you're spending a top,
second round pick.
Yeah, exactly. So
and the thing about that with CeeDee Lamb is that he was, the Cowboys were trailing for like 55 minutes of that game yesterday. So not only did he have that bad game, he had that bad game in a positive game script as far as fantasy goes. What worries me about CeeDee Lamb is it seems like McCarthy, and he was getting a lot of slack for this on the offseason. He was talking about, we want to run the ball, we want to control the clock, and this, that, and the other thing. It seems like he was dead ass on that. Like he was serious. And I think his plan, because there's that stat going around where if Dak throws the ball over 35 times, the Cowboys win like 30% of the games. Whereas if he throws under 35 times, then they win like 88%, something crazy like that. So he's trying to keep it so Dak's not throwing. And then when they even late in that game yesterday, they were still running the ball, not throwing. So I'm wondering if, that could be a concern down the line.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's just the breaks are over there in the Red Sea. But, man, I think everybody wrote Cardinals off as the worst team starting out, and they definitely are putting some people on notice, kind of.
They've played well. I know they're just 1-2, but they haven't. Everyone expected them to come in and just shit the bed and tank for Caleb. But they, their first 3 games, they've been playing hard, which I give, they don't have the most talented team out there, but you got to give them a lot of respect. I saw that video of their coach giving the motivational speech. I was like, this team is going to be so terrible.
Yeah, they can't motivate me to make a sandwich over there. Like he's asking a room full of millionaires, or at least a good percentage of them, if any of them took the bus to practice.
Who took the bus?
That was a terrible joke there. Even that one was all explodes, bombs. Yeah, excited.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? Something he's doing is resonating because they're playing hard and they're not getting blown out. They played tough week 1. They had the Giants on the ropes week 2, and they pulled out a win against the Cowboys in week 3. And they won. They were double-digit dogs, and they won by double digits. That's something's working. And shout out to Josh Dobbs out there trolling Micah Parsons on TikTok. Shout out.
What are you thinking about your Kings for the next most important position?
So, tight end king, undisputed, will always be also better than Gronk, Travis Kelce. 7 catches, 69 yards, touchdown, and Taylor Swift in the house. So, what else is there to say?
No. He's going to be consistently 1 or 2, and I hope that let's just say Taylor Swift goes to every game so he can just look up in the stands and then he can hold hands with her at the end of the game just to get all that extra attention. I heard that they even hit her in a popcorn machine from his suite just to get her out of there with all the fans.
That's how famous she is.
Yeah, no, big time. But yeah, definitely a king. I'll say my king, and I have both these guys in the same team. So I didn't get to benefit from one of them except for in another league is Sam Laporta. He did well, dude. He's creeping up in target share, his percentage as well. He went for 8 catches, 84 yards, and a touchdown. Dude, he's looking good. So
he's another guy. Yeah, sorry to cut you off there, but he's a guy that has been impressive the first couple weeks. He might start creeping into that top 5, because everybody with the exception of Kelce. And Kelsey's only played 2 weeks. He's, we know what Kelce is and what he's going to be, but all the other tight ends that are supposed to be up there are not doing anything.
And he's consistent. He's consistently getting at least 7 targets a game. So, that's what you want from a tight end that you got in the 12th round. Or, I got that guy off waivers. So on a lot of teams, if not the very last few rounds. So draft capital, snake, all very good. Both good kings at that tight end position. Why don't I just take over and, so you can cap us off there, then we can move to running back. A tight end, I'm going to stop saying his name. I'll maybe bring him up a couple more times before I write him off, but Darren Waller. Jeez, he is a joker, man. I don't know what I was thinking. I think too many analysts off NFL Network,
every single
ESPN.
analyst.
I think everybody was like, "Oh, this is Waller. He's going to get the target share. He's a big target. He's athletic. He's talented. Who's the Giants going to be their go-to? It's going to be this guy." But one, Daniel Jones is overthrowing him, so there's a few he can't control. But even then, some of the ones he can catch, he ain't really catching them. I don't know. He just doesn't look good. I mean, it looks like he's going to be a consistent for like 2 to 6 points at most until I see something different. Huge letdown this week and for the year so far.
Yeah, couldn't agree more, especially because he's on my roster. And going back to what you were saying, it was literally every analyst was hyping him all offseason. It was like they have to take Darren Waller out of practices because he's just torching him, and Daniel Jones is just targeting him all the time, and they need to get their wide receivers work. It's Darren Waller season, and yeah, sweet. I'm glad we listened to that. What was I thinking? Thinking Daniel Jones could have a fantasy relevant pass catcher. What was I thinking? My Joker again. This is the tight end Joker of the Year award. I'm calling it after 3 weeks, and it's close given what Darren Waller is doing. But Kyle Pitts, Kyle Pitts just I don't get it. I don't get it. I know they want to be a run first team, and Kyle Pitts. It's frustrating because he's getting open, and you see Ritter throwing it 12 yards over his head. If I was Kyle Pitts, I would say, look, trade me to Kansas City right now, because that would be dope. Have a succession plan for Travis Kelce in a couple of years. Get him some rings. But yeah, if I was him, I would want to get the F out of Dodge when it comes to Atlanta, because even they drafted Bijan, so you can make the argument like, hey, we want to run, we got this great running back. Bijan only had like 6 or 7 points this week, right? He didn't have a huge game. And
Algier did terrible too. He had like 2 points. So I think Bijan and Algier combined barely hit double digits. Barely.
Yeah. I don't think they did.
Yeah. So it was pretty bad. So was that a buy low on Kyle Pitts?
No, that was
did that sell or drop, huh?
That's a sell for $1 worth of fab.
Right. That's hilarious. But yeah, totally agree. Total bust. The athleticism people can talk about all they want.
He's a freak athlete. He's getting that open. They're just not throwing it to him. They're like, you know what? I'm going to take 3 guys in the top 10, and I'm going to have a super boring offense. I'm going to take 3 skill players in the top 10 of the last 3 drafts, and then I'm going to run the most boring offense imaginable. My name is Arthur Smith.
Riddler at Cincinnati over there. He kind of did play a cake schedule, even though they went undefeated. But I didn't really think he was going to be that great this year anyway. So let's move to running backs.
Back to running backs. Yeah, we skipped them. That was my bad. I got so excited about the wide receivers.
That's true. Yeah. It happens. It's a good position to get excited for. Let's go with a couple kings. Let's just say Miami Dolphins running backs together. Whether you had Mostert or you had A-Chain. Both those dudes feasted. They had a couple holidays and some leftovers as far as foods, man. They just kept eating and eating and eating. They just crushed
like
the spirits.
Kobayashi.
Yeah, 4 touchdowns each. Jesus. I just can't believe how good that they looked. A-Chain actually looked faster. He looked a little bit more explosive, but you can't knock on Raheem Mostert at all, dude. Those guys, I don't think many people, unless you're in a super deep league, had A-Chain starting, unless you're maybe in Dynasty or just very like 12 or 14.
Or if you were in dire straits because you had, Eckler and Aaron Jones or something, you know what I mean? And you were...
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, anybody, they did really good. So those are my kings for the week, is Miami Dolphins running back as a whole.
Sweet, man. So my king is going to be James Conner, and I've been banging this drum for I don't know how long. Dude put up 19 points this weekend against the Dallas defense, the vaunted Dallas defense. He's getting the touches. He's efficient. He's got a touchdown. He had 98 yards, and I was begging for him to get 2 more because in the league we're in, you get a 5-point bonus if they go over 100. And then he got he had like a 6-yard run to get to 98 and he got the first down and they just kneeled the clock out. I was so sad.
I know you needed sometimes an extra 5 points. I mean, they're huge.
Yeah.
Totally. So I definitely good call. I mean, I love it. I actually benched him in one league, but I ended up putting in Mostert in his spot. I had Tony Pollard and Connor, so can't be mad at that. But yeah, good king.
He's running back 6 on the year right now, which, I mean, dude, like he is going, I don't ever see him going for like 35 plus, but I also don't see him dropping below double digits. The targets are there, the workload's there as far as the carries. He's a solid player,
and there's no competition really. No one's like on his heels trying to take his position away from him. They're committed,
and the Cardinals aren't laying down, right? So, James Conner, man, shout out to you. So
absolutely, actually, both the Kings for this week. You didn't really get them as far as high draft capital, and as well as where you got them in each round. So kudos to those guys.
Yeah, we're making the case for the 0 running back folks out there.
I know. Speaking of jokers, let's talk about some running backs. Let's keep the team theme going. Let's go with Chicago Bears. I think the whole team minus DJ Moore is the only person who had a good day, but even his good day was very lucky.
He had that drop that was killer, though.
Yeah, but even then, I'm saying if it wasn't for that garbage touchdown at the end, that's what got him into double digits, but it could have been bad. But the Bears running backs, Jesus, Khalil Herbert is supposed to be the starter. He had 31 yards and a fumble. So don't matter if he caught a catch or two. If you're in any league PPR, half point PPR standard, he did not. He basically got you nothing. 1 to 5 points at most. And then Roschon Johnson, everyone's thinking he's the better back. He can handle it. He's going to complement him well. And, he didn't do anything as well. I mean, I think the Bears in general are just kind of shut down. Like I said, DJ Moore's the only one who, was serviceable as far as from a fantasy purpose.
And I'm going to make you feel a little bit better on that just because the Chiefs defense is so solid. I mean, they're the Chiefs for a reason. No,
and shout out to Peez to stream the Chiefs defense. I was able to get them in a couple, and they got me double digits. So
yeah, the Chiefs defense is playing very well. They drafted a lot of guys last year that are now in their second year gelling. Chris Jones is back. He's playing for a contract, which actually brings me to my next point. So my running back bust is Joshua Kelly. We all thought, okay, Eckler's out. Kelly's going to get the touches. It's not going to be as good as Eckler, but, there's going to be production there. Wrong. So wrong. He has been complete garbage.
Back-to-back weeks garbage with no Eckler. I'm like stunned on how bad he is.
He's got more yards in the game he played with Eckler than he does in the 2 games without Eckler. It doesn't make any sense. So that's the Chargers telling, Eckler's like, hey, I want a new deal. What I do for this offense isn't replaceable. And through 2 weeks, he's right. Like Eckler, it's crazy how Eckler can go for dumb points in fantasy, dumb touchdowns all the time. And, now we're looking at Kelly and he's just garbage.
Yeah. I feel foolish. I spent a bunch of my fab budget on him in a couple of leagues. So what a letdown. I'm totally on board with that. Huge bust, huge joker.
Yep. All right. So that brings us to the end of the Kings.
Let's talk real quick. I just want to mention a couple honorable mentions since we're talking about Kings doing King stuff, kind of like you and I facing off, always being in playoff contention. Let's talk about stud wide receivers for draft capital, whether you're in Snake or whether you spend a lot of money on them. All the big names all the way up until you got to basically CeeDee Lamb and Cooper Kupp, because he wasn't playing. He's actually on IR, but you have Jay Jetta. He did work.
Killing it.
He crushed this week. You had Jamar Chase. He had a great Monday Night Football.
I think he had like 14 catches.
And then let's just say, depending on when you drafted, from a time perspective of Cooper Kupp, if you drafted early, that news wasn't fully out. He was usually the 3rd wide receiver off the board, but the 4th overall consensus for the most part was Tyreek Hill. And
go
those
for 2K.
Yes, those 3 wide receivers are straight balling. So if there's
and even
if
throw
there
Devontae
is
Adams in there, like we talked about earlier. So really, if you take Cooper Kupp out of the equation, the top 4 receivers that were going off the board, 1, 2, 3, 4, are all showing out.
Yeah. So it's good to see that, especially, sometimes even in one league, I was telling a buddy of mine, I had the number 2 spot. I do have a couple leagues where it's snake, and I went with Eckler in my second pick, and I was just kind of thinking, because Jefferson went 1, I was like, what was I thinking not to go? And it's a full point PPR league. Like, why did I not take CMC or, Tyreek Hill? I'm just so mad. But yeah, shout out to them. So huge, constant kings, and, for people who have shares, reap those benefits.
Sweet. Yeah, definitely. All right, Beep, what do you have for us when it comes to waiver wire?
We're going to get into the waiver wire here. I'm going to give you a couple of names. You guys tell me who you're picking up for your team. We're going to start with the quarterbacks here. I said it last week. I'm going to say it again. Just like Joe Tessitore, Baker Mayfield.
Baker Emmanuel Mayfield.
Yeah, Baker Mayfield. Let's go.
Who's he playing?
CJ Stroud.
No.
And
playing against, I should say. I know he's with Tampa Bay.
That's a great question. Let me pull that up here. While I'm thinking about that, so we've got Baker Mayfield. We have CJ Stroud from the Texans. And because the injury to Derek Carr, how about Jameis Winston?
Famous Jameis. So if I'm looking for someone to pick up for the year, if I'm in real dire straits, I'm probably going to go with CJ Stroud here. CJ Stroud, man, he rolled in against the Jaguars and just laid the wood, right? I was a little, I don't want to say I was concerned. I just didn't, I didn't see him going off as quickly as he has. I didn't think he would be playing this well this early, but I was wrong. He put up 380 yards yesterday. Like, if I was in dire straits and I needed someone for the rest of the year, I'd be looking at CJ Stroud for sure.
Yeah, he's actually the first. He's the first player in fantasy history, or actually NFL league history, to have at least 900 passing yards and 4 passing touchdowns and 0 interceptions in his first 3 games. So everybody says quarterbacks out of Ohio State are just an automatic bust. And for the most part,
up until now, they have been.
Yeah, I was going to say there might be someone who broke the curse over there, and they were even talking about bringing him to Chicago, which is hilarious. But yeah, I think I would go the same. I think I'd agree with the Peezy there. I would go with CJ Stroud, but I do. I would say out of those ones, though, I honestly would not feel bad about Baker Mayfield. I feel like it really I feel like he's going to be like your constant, maybe let's just say 175 to like 275 yards and at least 1 touchdown every game with Mike Evans or Godwin or all those. So I would say he'd be my second option there. But CJ Stroud would be my first choice.
Yeah, it's funny because the answer to my question, they play each other next week. It's Miami versus the Bucks. So that's a tough matchup.
New Orleans versus the Bucks.
New Orleans versus Tampa Bay. So that's a tough matchup for both because New Orleans.
And then he's got a bye right after that.
Yeah, New Orleans doesn't have a good defense. They have a great defense. They haven't allowed 20 points in 11 games. So I don't know if I'd be picking up Baker Mayfield to stream this week. On the other side, Jameis is if Derek Carr has to miss time, we know Jameis is going to play YOLO ball. We know, he's got the most recent 30-30. We're talking about touchdowns and picks in the same season. So he's gonna chuck it up. The Jets should call him if Derek Carr's okay because they need someone who will just chuck and duck. But yeah, I don't know, man. I don't think I'd stream either of those guys this week. I just think it's a tough matchup for both of them.
So maybe pick up Taysom Hill.
Perfect. I don't know if I go that far.
Moving on.
We'll see.
So obviously, A-Chain is probably going to be the first one picked up on most everyone's wires this week. But let's take a look at a couple other guys here. Let's look at Ezekiel Elliott going up against his former team this week. We got Roschon Johnson or Tyjae Spears.
Spears. I'm just kidding. I just wanted to say that, but
obviously the
A-Chain is he's the number one. I mean, you're gonna spend your fab budget, or you're gonna throw your number one waiver claim there if you're not in fab. But I think he was even getting some coverage, some hype, preseason that he was gonna take it over, and I think people realized that. Mostert and Wilson were there, that he wasn't just going to push them to the side, but he looks
and
good.
Salim Ahmed too.
Totally. So I would say he would be number one. But if he's not available, or depending on where you're at, how much you have left in your fab budget, I would say Zeke. Go with that revenge game. I mean, he's getting a little work, and he's getting more points than Joshua Kelly, that's for sure, as well as Tyler Algier and Khalil Herbert and Antonio Gibson, basically everybody on my squad. So I would say look at Zeke. Anything were to go happen to Cook as well, then he would definitely be leapfrogged into that starting role. So I would say Zeke. What about you, Peezy?
Sorry, guys, my AirPods died on us, so I had to switch to manual. So, but yeah, so I couldn't hear a word you said, which is the best thing that's happened on this podcast ever. But I think A-Chain is obviously the right answer. It's one of those things where I'm in a weird spot with if you're in a fab league, how much do you put on there? Because the thing is Mostert is still there, and Mostert is he's
looking good. He's the one right now. He's looking good. You can't when you're talking about like people can't lose their jobs to the injury. Yes, that happens, but you're not going to lose your job if you're performing and you're still the number one.
But he is very injury prone throughout his career. He hasn't played a full season.
He has been
true,
and so I think I would go about 40% for A-Chain, somewhere around there. Maybe it really depends on your running back room, but he's going to have games where he goes off like yesterday, and he could have games where he gets 2 carries for 1.9 yards, like he had last week. It's going to be very hard to trust him until he shows that until he gets like 15 touches a game. But his upside is so high that you have to take a shot with him. You have to. We saw, they're not always going to play in the Broncos, who literally quit on their team. But the speed for him is there, and we know that the Dolphins' offense is built through speed. It's what they want to do. They want to get space. They want to get guys open, guys running. And the upside's just there. As far as,
do you feel the need for speed?
You're dangerous, Maverick. So
what's your next guy then? If you're saying he's the obvious one, that's who I basically talked about. I think who are
the other options from Beep? Because that's right when my head.
So Roschon Johnson, Ezekiel Elliott, or Tyjae Spears.
You might think I'm crazy here. Spears has been getting a lot of work. Now, is Derrick Henry a little more hurt than we thought?
He only rushed for 20 yards last week.
Yeah, or is Derrick Henry, did those 400 carries a year for the last 5 years finally catch up with him? So I'd take a look at Spears. I know last week I said I wouldn't, but with what I saw this week, I mean, it's hard to argue. Fantasy football is like, I don't want to say it's like 80% volume, but at the running back position, there's a pretty good argument to be made that if you're getting volume, you're going to be a top player. So I'd monitor that. I don't think Zeke, is going to do much. I know they're playing Dallas, but that offense, the New England offense, is just boring. And Ramondre Stevenson is getting all the good work. So, and then Roschon, I mean, I really can't trust anybody on the Chicago offense right now.
I would say DJ Moore, but even then, I would say wide receiver 3, flex position.
He'd be a flex option, yeah,
depending on like how deep your team is. Yep. So,
all right, moving on here. Wide receivers. We're gonna get a couple options here. I'm gonna get you a duo package: Joshua Palmer and Quentin Johnson from the Chargers. Now that Mike Williams is out for the year. Romeo Doubs and Jalen Reed from the Packers. And I'll give you the option between Marvin Mims and Tank Dell.
So I'm gonna answer that in 2 stages. I like the Chargers better than the Packers. Right now, like I said, Quentin Johnston is not getting open. But Palmer was the one who took over the targets after Mike Williams went down.
Well, he led the Chargers in receptions last year.
Palmer did?
No.
Oh, Mike. Oh, yeah,
Williams. No. Palmer led the Chargers with 72 receptions last year.
Mike Williams and Keenan Allen missed like 18 combined games last year. Yeah. So Palmer for me is ahead of Quentin Johnston. And but it's one of those things where if Palmer's already on a team somewhere, which he might be, then you can take a flyer on Quentin Johnson and just see how it works out. With the Green Bay guys, the reason I don't want to go Green Bay is because when Christian Watson comes back, he's a bona fide dog. He's a number 1 option. He's missed the first 3 games, and hopefully he gets healthy soon. But when he gets back, that's going to eat into their target share. And then the last 2 guys, Tank Dell he seems to be a serious player. That might be a good stash. He could be a flex option for a couple weeks. So if I had to pick the teammate options, I'd go with the Chargers, and then Tank Dell is going to be my other choice there.
I'm still laughing the fact that you referred to Christian Watson as a dog.
He's a dog, dude. Won me a title.
You made me think of that meme. Are you watching too much Instagram over there? Romeo Doubs, dog. Jalen Reed, dog. Christian Watson, dog. Jordan Love, dog. Well, I don't think Christian Watson. I mean, he had Aaron Rodgers. We'll see how he goes. I think with the options that BeepCount referenced, I would go somewhat similar. I would definitely go with the Chargers player first, just because, I mean, Mike Williams was about to be on a verge. I just think the Chargers is a team like the Dolphins, also like, the Eagles, where they can support, 2 wide receivers. And that's a team that I feel comfortable doing that, because they're going to throw a ton, and Herbert doesn't, he's always going to have 2 guys that he can just lock in on. So I would lean Palmer first. But I think Johnson's going to do better. I mean, they drafted him, and he's tall and he's big. There's no way.
Get open though.
Yeah, I was going to say there's just no way he's going to leapfrog those guys, but we'll see. He'll get his shot. But I would say Palmer would be number 1, and for me, I would say my number 2. I'm going to go with Tank. We briefly brought him up. I've kind of said he's been, the Houston, along with Nico Collins and CJ Stroud. I mean, Nico Collins busted and Tank did well. Tank has actually been doing good while Nico's been doing good too. So I think game flow, there's just going to be a lot of thrown, balls their way. So I'm going to go with Tank. It just sucks because usually on teams that are the least flashy, you don't get as much coverage and you're not as excited for it. But I think from a fantasy perspective, I would say if I couldn't get Palmer, I think I would lean Tank.
I'm going to go with sneaky pick here. And it's going to be a kind of a throwback to the old guys. I got a Thielen. He's probably available in your league. Adam Thielen in Carolina.
Yeah. And so with Thielen, hooked on a Thielen, I like the reference. But, it's crazy that we saw Thielen get all those targets, making some good plays with Andy Dalton this week. Everyone's like, oh, well, the rookie's struggling because he's a rookie and they don't have any Bryce Young's struggling because they don't have any weapons. Andy Dalton comes out there, puts up, 350 with those same targets?
Yeah.
So maybe
you look good.
Maybe
And
that
DJ
sparks a little something, and he starts looking Thielen's way more. Because you're right. Thielen, I mean, man, he's tough to trust with his, with last year's performance and this year. But he showed this week, he's like, I can still get open, I can still catch the ball. So what are we gonna do here? But yeah, that's a good sneaky pick. He could be a guy that could fill in for you on, I won't say a weekly basis, but he's a spot starter for sure if you can get a good matchup going for him.
Well, I really messed up and I left him on the bench this week. And he absolutely went off on the bench, 11 catches, 145 yards and a touchdown.
I would have left him on the bench too, though, because you didn't know what you were going to be getting with Andy Dalton. So
my other option was Michael Thomas, and that didn't work out. What are you going to do?
I started Thielen in one of my leagues, but that's just because it's a dynasty and there's 20-man people, and then all my starters are hurt, and my team sucks. So, but
fair enough.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to go into tight ends here. We are going to go with a guy that I mentioned last week. I think a lot of the kingdom decided, hey, listen to Beep, start picking him up. He's on now 20% of rosters when last week he was on 0.7% of rosters. Jake Ferguson in Dallas. And then we'll throw in Luke Musgrave in Green Bay.
Jakey.
Just out of curiosity.
Musgrave is
like
rostered
10%.
in about 13% of leagues. 10 to 15%.
I would go Jake. Dak needs a tight end, especially in the red zone. I mean, because clearly, if you watch that game, dude, him in the red zone does not look good against Arizona. What I was looking, I think he needs a big target in the middle. So I'm going to go with Jakey.
I'm actually going to go with Musgrave for this week. If I'm a streamer, guy who streams tight ends,
Willie Beamer,
like Collin does on the weekends, I'm actually going with Musgrave because they're playing Detroit, who right now is giving up the third most points to tight ends in this league in the season so far. So they're vulnerable to tight ends, and I just think that he's a high upside play if you're streaming tight ends. So I like the matchup.
Fair enough. Let's take a look at a couple of defenses here just to kind of round all of this out. This is a dumb choice. I don't even know why it's even out here. The Denver Broncos, Cleveland Browns, or the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Ooh, you're gonna have to go with the AFC North. I mean, you definitely don't want to
next week though, because the Steelers have TJ Watt.
And that guy is a freak of nature. Jesus. He is good.
So the Steelers are playing the Texans this week, week 4.
Steelers for sure. Because you know what? My boy Justin Fields is about to throw 45 on the Broncos just to make my life perfect. Let's ride.
The Browns are playing a hampered Joe Burrow and the Bengals in week 4 here.
And another...
Who are they playing? Who are the Bengals playing?
The Bengals.
Bengals can't play the Bengals. Who's the other defense?
The Browns.
Oh yeah,
man. The Browns are playing the Bengals twice already.
Yeah, didn't they play them in week 1?
It's the Ravens. I don't watch football. I don't know what I'm talking about. It's still baseball season. Hockey's about to start going here. Come on.
Like
you guys knew what you were getting into when we started this whole thing.
Yeah.
Hey, let's start a fantasy football show with a guy who doesn't watch football,
but still plays fantasy. So I mean,
because we're living in a fantasy, we're all in the Matrix. You might as well have fun, right?
Living in a material world.
It was a cruel summer, and I think we got some bad blood.
Listen,
but hey, Kelsey almost got 22.
Queen of Kansas City right now. So
I'm just saying, Kelsey almost got 22.
I'm telling you right now, you can get the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl at plus 350. It's a lock.
Sparks are going to fly.
Indeed.
It's a lock. You must
They're Starbucks lovers, which is what I legit thought the lyrics were the first time I heard that song.
All right. I think it's a good place to wrap it up here.
Yeah, I think so too. And then so to the kingdom out there. We're going to be back on Friday with an episode where we're going to go over the matchups for the upcoming weekend game. So keep an eye out for that. Collin, any last thoughts?
Love that I got that W against you, my co-host.
Brutal. Can't wait to see you in late December.
The second season, we'll see. Maybe I'll be undefeated still.
You've lost a game.
I'm undefeated.
I was talking about life. Beep, any last thoughts?
'Tis the damn season.
Tis the season. All right, Kingdom. Until next time, keep raining out there. And remember, when you play fantasy,
you play for the crown.
We'll see you on
Baker
Friday.
Mayfield. Thanks for listening to this episode of Fantasy Football Kings. You can always reach out to us on Twitter at FFB_Kings or like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're available wherever you get podcasts, so don't forget to download, subscribe, review, and rate 5 stars.